Part 3 movie, what material you use to find gold in Adirondack Mountains will be Gold Monster 1000.
G'day, I'm Simon Mazurek from MineLab, here with Ali from our Dubai office. We're excited to introduce our new universal gold detector, the Gold Monster 1000.
This entry-level VLF detector will turn beginners into experts in no time. It includes a choice of coils, batteries, shaft and supplied headphones.
We've had Jonathan and other field testers carrying out extensive testing for the MineLab engineering team. The Gold Monster 1000 has already proven itself to outperform all other high-frequency competitors in mineralised ground conditions. This detector has been designed as a modular adaptable system with several assembled configurations. We'll now take you through the 6 assembly steps in the Getting Started guide. First, screw the middle shaft and lower shaft together. Make sure you do them up tightly. Then, screw the upper shaft and middle shaft together in the same way. You can use either the GM10 coil for greater ground coverage and depth, or the GM5 for tight spaces. Before you attach the coil, check that the 2 washers are in the yoke. Then, use a plastic bolt to attach the assembled shaft to the coil. Using 2 of the shaft clamps, attach the control box to the upper shaft. Make sure you line up the notches on the clamps. The clamps are tight enough so that the control box does not rotate on the shaft. Now, use the remaining 2 clamps and bolts to attach the armrest. Position the armrest just below your elbow and then tighten. Check that the coil, control box and armrest are aligned and positioned correctly. Adjust if needed, then do the bolts up tightly. Wrap the coil cable around the shaft. If you do not do this, a loose cable may cause noise and false detections. Connect the coil cable to the control box and tighten the connector. The Gold Monster 1000 comes with 2 battery options, a rechargeable lithium-ion battery and a carrier which holds 8 AA batteries. The lithium-ion battery can be charged using the supplied AC plug pack or a 12-volt DC vehicle adapter cable. Insert the battery into the battery compartment with the MineLab logo facing outwards. Lock the battery cover into place. If you prefer to use headphones while detecting, then connect the headphones to the control box. The Gold Monster 1000 is fully automatic, so you can just turn on and go detecting, with no complicated controls or ground balancing procedures to learn. You'll then be spending more time finding gold and less time adjusting settings. There's just 3 quick steps to carry out. Press the power button. Hold the coil in the air for about 10 seconds. Place the coil on the ground and begin detecting.
I'm going to talk to you today about MineLab's Gold Monster 1000 and how to set that up for gold. Now, a lot of people ask me about the Gold Monster. It's a great detector. It's very sensitive. It's one of the most sensitive detectors on the market when you're using the small coil. Okay, it comes actually with 2 coils. This is the smaller one. It comes with a little bit bigger coil. The bigger coil will actually see a little bit more depth and it will cover a little more ground, but on the other hand, it's not quite as sensitive to the tiniest gold. So when I use my Gold Monster, because what I'm usually looking for in my Gold Monster is maximum sensitivity to tiny gold. So that's why I'm normally using that small coil. Now, this is a great machine. And you know, when I talk about how to set up the Gold Monster for gold, it's a pretty simple lesson. I'm going to talk to you about some of the hows and whys and why I do this or that or the other thing, and what I've had success with. And hopefully that'll be useful to you in giving you some confidence out in the field with the Gold Monster. Now, honestly, the Gold Monster is one of the most automatic high sensitivity detectors that are out there. When you turn it on, it's just a simple button. Turn it on, it goes through a boot cycle. I'm going to do individual pictures of this to show you close up what the screen looks like. So it has basically only 3 kinds of settings. It has, well, 4 if you count the on-off button. It has a gain setting up and down. It has a middle button for discrimination or not discrimination. And then it has a sound button for how loud you want your machine to sound off. You may adjust it if you're just using headphones, or you want it a little louder because you're not using headphones and maybe there's some wind or something. So really that's just the 4 settings: on, off, gain, discriminate, not discriminate, and volume. That's really it, okay?
So just take a quick look at these. Here is the on-off button, and press this once and it begins the boot up cycle that turns your machine on. The next setting is your gain adjustment up and down. Now this amplifies or turns down the amount of amplification your machine gives to the signal that comes out of the ground, and increases or decreases sensitivity. Now you might think that, oh, you always want the highest sensitivity. Well, sometimes, in fact, very frequently, you'll have mineralization in the ground, and you'll want to maybe turn down the gain so that you get the best, clearest signal on the gold. I'll talk about this more in just a minute. And this is what the display looks like when it's turned up to the point where the machine will take over the gain setting for you. And if you're a new guy, like I say on the video, this is probably a pretty good idea to start your experience with the machine out using the computer program in the machine that adjusts the gain on your behalf based on what the machine sees as mineralization in the ground. The next button is this button in the middle, which turns the discrimination on or off, the discrimination switch, which you can see there. And then on the display, it will indicate either a shallow hole like this or a deeper hole that I'll show you in a second. But the shallow hole indicates that the discrimination has been turned on. There is a significant reduction in sensitivity, and that shows by the shallower hole, with the idea that discrimination off gives you a deeper hole. And then here you can see the deeper hole as showing that the discrimination has been turned off and you're getting the maximum sensitivity. And finally, we have the volume adjustment and output display for what your volume setting is. And basically you just adjust this to what your ear needs to hear the signal clearly. The display also shows a battery charge indicator, and as you can see in this picture, my battery is on the low side. Now, it comes with a rechargeable battery that can be used again and again, and it also comes with a little holder that you can put AA batteries in if you get in a situation that you can't recharge. So it gives a lot of options. Finally, I'd like to talk a little bit about mineralization adjustment. Now, the Gold Monster 1000 is always in automatic mode. It's always automatically adjusting the mineralization setting in the machine for what the coil sees in the ground. Now, you know, a lot of machines have a manual adjustment for this that you can basically set it to be a fixed ground balance, and then you will adjust it manually as necessary. But with the Gold Monster, like I say, it's designed for maximum ease of use, and so it's always in automatic mode. There is no mode of fixed ground balance and manual adjustment. Anyway, so that's basically an introduction to the settings of the Gold Monster, and now let's take a look at putting the detector together.
Neurologists are stunned. They've confirmed that ear ringing is shrinking your brain set.
The machine goes together really easily. Now I have an aftermarket rod on mine that's collapsible. The ones that come from MineLab are not collapsible. This one, I can shrink it down. If I took off these little cable guides, I could shrink it down even more, but it extends out and it's adjustable. I also have this basically stabilizer for putting it on the ground. Some guys don't like that kind of stuff. I do. Both the extendable cable, or both the extendable rod and the stabilizer for setting it on the ground, I got from Miner John. You can look him up on the internet. He sells accessory parts. So the Gold Monster, really super sensitive detector. The discrimination on it actually works pretty good. It's pretty reliable, but using discrimination is a skill. And a lot of guys who just buy a new detector think, okay, I'm turned on discrimination and it'll beep when there's a good target and it won't beep when there's not. Well, it's way, way, way more complicated than that. I actually did an entire video on using discrimination, and I'm going to put a link to that in the bottom, in the description. Now, most guys, a lot of people who use these will just tell you, dig it all, that's better than discrimination, because if you use discrimination, you're going to miss gold. And well, what I'm going to tell you is, if you use discrimination improperly, yup, guaranteed you're going to miss gold. If you use it the way I tell you to in that video, you might miss a little bit, but not much. So if you're a new prospector and you really don't have the skills of pinpointing well, and you're not used to the discrimination, it's new, and it's something you're getting used to, then I say go with what the other guys say, which is dig it all, okay? While you're learning, dig it all. Once you get really skilled and understand and learn how to use this thing and how to pinpoint targets properly, and you listen to that video that I did on discrimination, then, you know, maybe you can try the discrimination out, especially in trashy areas. So the setting that you're going to want, if you're digging it all, there's no point in having it in discrimination mode, because when you're in discrimination, you lose sensitivity. No argument, no question, no debate. If you're in discrimination, you're losing sensitivity. And if you're in discrimination and you're using the big coil, you're losing significant sensitivity, even if you have the gain on max. So if you're digging it all, I recommend putting it on no discrimination, which is, and on this setting, I'll show you close up. The discrimination is the shorter hole, and the not discriminate, it's the deeper hole. What it's telling you by that little pictograph, the deeper hole means greater sensitivity, which is what I just said. So if you're running it and you're going to dig it all, you're just kind of new to this whole thing, run it in no discrimination. You'll get your maximum sensitivity. Yup, you're going to dig some targets that are trash. But that's part of the deal with getting used to metal detecting for gold. You're going to dig trash. The goal is to dig gold, though. So
if you do want to give the discrimination a try, I think the bar up at the top, the bar graph that goes one way or the other, gives you the best information. And the problem is that this is showing a full-scale readout to the non-ferrous, or what you would get for gold or lead or brass, copper. It doesn't always give you a full-scale readout. A lot of times you get the bouncing back and forth, or you get a partial readout. And in this case, you have to consider that the machine is uncertain. And when the machine doesn't know, when the machine isn't fully certain of one way or the other, then that's when you have to dig it all. the machine is telling you, I don't know, that means it could be gold or it could be trash. And this is the other reading where the machine is giving a strong readout showing that it's iron. And believe me, there is lots of rusty old iron junk from large to small out in the gold fields that have been previously worked by the old timers. But also, as I said, the machine isn't always as certain what it is as this would indicate. A lot of times you'll get readings bouncing back and forth.
So get out there, listen to those targets. I've got a whole series on successful metal detecting for gold, and I'm going to put a link to that series too in the description for this video. Listen to those things, learn the skills of being a successful prospector. So put it in not discriminate, all right? Then turn the volume up to whatever you need to. The volume is the one on this side. Turn this up to whatever you need to make it, good for you to hear. You don't want to have it scream through the forest, but you want to be able to hear targets and hear the detector and the noises that it makes. And then the only other adjustment that's on this thing is the gain. And it actually has a setting where if you turn the gain up to the maximum, you'll see, I'm going to show you close up, that the inside, the center of this fills in black. When you've got the black center filled in and the gain is turned up all the way, what's happening is the machine will adjust the gain to what it thinks you should have. It actually will self-adjust the gain as to what you think it should have. Now, if you're a new prospector, that's really the setting you want to go. You want to go with the one where it's filled in the center and let the machine adjust for you. When you get a little more experienced, you might turn it to the highest where the center isn't filled in, or some lower setting as necessary depending on how mild or mineralized the ground is. One of the things about metal detecting, especially with a VLF, which is what the Gold Monster is that it'll make noise on mineralization. And by turning down the gain a little bit, you really don't lose that much sensitivity, and yet you'll get rid of some of that noise. Now, most guys are really afraid to turn down the gain simply because they think, oh, I want maximum sensitivity. But if the machine is going chirp, chirp, beep, 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 chirp, 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 beep, 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 click, 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 burp, 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 one of those might have been a gold target. And because it was making so much noise, your chip, chip, burp, burp, beep, 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 you didn't hear the gold target because it was only one of lots of noise responding from mineralization. You want to run the thing fairly quiet. So turning the gain down to a point where it's not chirping beep, 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 beep on every little thing that it goes by, not just hot rocks, but in a lot of places you can get chirps and beeps just on the ground because the ground has a lot of mineralization. So turn the gain down, or if you're new, turn it all the way up to where the middle fills in, and the machine will back off the gain for you automatically. Now, that's really all there is. Off and on, that's the only other button, and I think you guys can handle off versus on as an adjustment that even a new guy can take care of and handle. So that's really all there is. Setting up the Gold Monster, one of the things about this is this was made by Minelab for overseas markets with the guys in mind that didn't have a lot of technical background, that didn't have a lot of background on equipment, electronics, and that kind of stuff, so that it'd be super simple to use. Well, hey, when you're new and starting out, super simple, that doesn't sound so bad, does it? Sounds pretty good. And the truth is, even if you're an experienced operator like me, you can adjust this thing and run it and take advantage of its sensitivity. It's a great detector. I use mine all the time in applications where I want the detector to be really sensitive to tiny gold. This and the Gold Bug 2 are my choices for that kind of application. So the Minelab Gold Monster, the other thing about it is its price. Of course, it's different priced in different countries, but in the US, a lot of times you can get this for in the ballpark of about $800 US, brand new. And right now, actually, as I'm filming this, there's only a limited number of these that are available from dealers. Probably, though, as the virus thing gets taken care of, there'll be more on the market. But it's a great detector. I highly recommend it. It's in my video on most sensitive detectors. It's one of the ones that I said is definitely in the pretty much in a tie with a lot of other detectors. It runs at a pretty high megahertz speed, which is how fast the detector cycles, and that has to do with its sensitivity. Higher megahertz generally, there's a lot of other factors, but it generally means more sensitivity. So great detector, good choice, super easy to operate. Watch my videos on using discrimination and on general metal detecting for nuggets, how to be successful at nugget finding, and I think that you will find this to be a great choice for a first detector for someone who's interested in buying a metal detector and going out and finding nuggets. Now, finding nuggets, as I say in a lot of my videos, is a skill. Prospecting is a skill, just like being an electrician or a plumber or, you know, a lot of other trade skills. A butcher or whatever. It's what you know and what your experience is. If you want to learn more about finding gold, and one of the things about any metal detector is, you know, the metal detector just beeps if you put it over a nugget. If it doesn't tell you where to go. It doesn't say, oh yeah, hey, go to this place in California or Nevada or Arizona or wherever. You know, it's not a map. It's a metal detector. And so you have to have the skills of finding gold in order to take this metal detector to a place where it can find some gold for you. And in order to increase your skills in finding gold and learning more about finding gold and being a more highly skilled prospector, I wrote a book. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my book right now.
Let this soft mineral melt in your mouth to rebuild your gums and teeth and never need a dentist again. Did you know there is a
So let me tell you a little bit more about my book. It's called Fistful of Gold, and I wrote it because I want you to be able to go out and find for yourself Fistful of Gold. And you can see that it's an encyclopedia with all kinds of information, pictures, and that sort of thing. It's not in color, but color would have cost me a lot more to have printed, and so the book would have cost a lot more. It's for sale on Amazon, and you can pick it up. I'll put a link in the description below. I also serve as the editor for a prospecting magazine. It's ICMJ's Prospecting and Mining Journal. And honestly, you should check that out. We got stories and information, legal stuff, everything you know to increase your skills as a prospector. I write articles in this every month, and a lot of other very experienced prospectors contribute to the magazine as well. So check the magazine out. Also, I have a website, and the website is at NevadaOutbackGems.com. I'll put a link for it in the description below, but there's gobs of information there that you will find useful in your prospecting efforts. Finally, I want to say that I really appreciate your comments and thoughts, and even positive criticism. Don't come on there and just toss out insults, because I'll just delete your comments. But if you've got helpful things to say and questions to ask, do write and put those in the comments, because I answer my comments to people, and you'll hear from me in responding to you. So if you've enjoyed this video and you like what you see and you're interested in finding out more, well then sign up.
Don't be lazy. Hit that subscribe button. God wasn't lazy. After he made heaven and earth, he made the universe. And he made man so good that a chiropractor can work on his back and it will lower his blood pressure. If you're one of these people that takes medicine and it lowers the immune system, you can tell that because the medicine people say that you take this medicine, you can catch something bad. The chiropractor can work on that to get that fixed too.
Sounds pretty good, and I think it's probably gold. So let's dig it and see. I'm going to put the camera down at a little further angle so you can see better. Okay, so here's that target. Okay, so it's definitely out of the hole. Okay, it took a little bit too much dirt in the scoop. For really small ones like this, you really need to get the scoop just with a little bit of dirt. I don't think it's in there. Let's see if it's in this one. Nope, it was in the first one. See, it all depends on where it is. Little tiny ones like that, where it is in the scoop makes all the difference in the world. Okay, definitely in the scoop. Definitely in my hand. In the scoop. Definitely in the scoop still. Okay, definitely in my hand. Okay. Definitely in my hand. Still in the scoop. In my hand. Man, these are so small, it's hard to see them even when you know they're there. Is that it? Nope, still in the scoop. Okay, in my hand, last few little pieces. Still in between my fingers. Is that it?
In the Adirondacks Mountains, I'm going for a little bit bigger than this.
Gold. Really tiny.
Matt Madison says. With a night before.
That's amazing. Can you see that
With a
little tiny piece with the camera?
1973 or before nickel sounds just like
speck,
gold.
But it's gold, and it sounds
And
off,
that's what
as you
I'm
can
going
hear.
for. It sounds like gold, the nickel sound.
So that's gold piece number 3.
Be on top. Now, in the desert, the reverse is true. The largest gold nuggets are found shallow, and this is why all of us have a shot in the desert. The rules are reversed out in the desert, and that's because the soil is angular. You have these angular rocks, and they kind of interlock, so not only a little small, teeny tiny piece of gold goes down deep where your big gold, due to the alkali salts, they kind of act as a concretion as they cook out every year when the soil gets a little damp, and then they cook out, gets damp, the next year cooks out. It forms like a concrete highway. And remember this, as gold is scooting along the desert highway, a pothole, even a small one, is a pocket. And you know the effect of a highway on the side of a mountain when gravels come down, they go right across it. Well, that's the desert for you. Anyone who's dug in the desert, and you see me doing it, and you hear that clink,
Spring
to a
runoff
certain
right down
point, it's
here.
generally about 6
Snow
8
up in
inches
here.
down solid, and you have to get through that area
In the
to get
Adirondacks
down to the
Mt, spring
softer
runoff.
material below. Well, our big gold nuggets are going to be riding right across that, and that's why you're going to have a shot, no matter what kind of metal detector you have in the desert. I'm not talking about Australia now, where you have ironstone. That's a totally different situation. We're out in the American desert. Things are relatively easy. We do have hot rocks and iron pieces out in there and things like that. But your biggest gold is generally found up near the surface. Now let's look at the mountain top. From the mountain top, you have weathering action. It can be wind, it can be water, and you get your Bajada placer. Those are your classic side placers that you can find by eyesight gold simply by walking along there. You're going to have to climb up there because it's generally some steep terrain to get to them. But these are where really big discoveries can be made. And there's a second area that you can discover huge nuggets. And that's down in this pediment area. And what this is the weathering action of this mountain is going back over thousands of years, and it's exposing its own bedrock down here at the bottom. Welcome to the Morenci mine, Arizona. Now this is a NASA ASTRA image, and we can use these images to find the pediment areas in the mountains. All you're going to do is take one of the NASA images, throw it into your browser or onto your desktop, and open it up in your picture mode, and then you're going to start zooming in and checking these areas for a pediment where the mountain has receded back and left a flat area. Usually they're all one color. And you're going to have at least 3 of those places targeted for your trip, so that if anyone doesn't work out, if you get on claimed ground or something like that, you have a backup someplace else to go. The soil is generally very rocky, if there is anything at all, because all this water is streaming off
Spring
the mountain,
water
and
runoff.
it hits this angle, whoosh, and it just flushes it. The only thing that is possible to stick here is gold, and you want to be right up in here in this area, right next to the mountain, if you're hunting by eyesight, or if you've got a Jeep in low range first gear and you're just creepy crawling along looking, or an ATV or something like that. This is a little area that you want to look for by eye. Here we have Death Valley looking north, massive quartz, and right in here, see how this face has eroded back? We have our pediment. This is the mountain pass area of California. And you see how these have eroded back almost straight down into a pediment. This area right in here.
What's going on? I'm not from this world.
Now let's cover metal detecting. What areas do we want to detect? Well, we have the pediment area coming off from the mountain, and this will wash down into a gully. Gullies are generally V-shaped, and from our last class we know they're hard to walk in, but the sides of these gullies are frequently all the way down to bedrock. These are really, really good places to look if you can get into the gully. Now, the gully's hard to get into, it's hard to get out of, so you got to be in pretty good shape. Gullies form gulches, and a gulch can be a half-mile wide. They're generally U-shaped, and this gives you a much wider area. Many times this will go all the way down to a bedrock area, and within the gulches, where do you find your little pockets? And pockets can be extremely rich with gold. Now, the gulches will form gulch, gulch, gulch. You know, many gulches form a wash. And a wash can be miles wide. And this is generalized ground, and it's blowing out over, again, that asphalt highway underneath it. And this is where you find all sizes of gold. Okay, you can be, but generally, since this is angular material, your bigger gold is still on top. Your smaller gold filters down between, and it's down deeper. Now, how do I set up my metal detector? What metal detector do I want to use? Well, you want to use the metal detector that you're familiar with first and foremost, no matter what that is. And what you want to practice with and you want to know all about is a nickel. You want to detect a nickel. If you're in the east, you want to bury this nickel and find out how deep you can detect it. When you get out west, from my experience anyway, your detection depth is going to be half of what you found in the east because of the difficulty of the soil, the iron sands, and that sort of thing. You want to take your nickel, you want to find out how far you can find it flat. Find out how far you can find it on the edge. Bury it again and find out all these things. So you've got a good idea of not only whether you can find a nugget, but what depth that nugget would be at, what the sound is. And you're going to take this nickel, a pre-1975 nickel, we want a good nickel, you're going to take that with you out west. So that you know, anytime you're getting a signal, you can kind of remind yourself what it sounds like. Now, another tactic you can use beyond the nickel, if you've got a basic machine, is go to the lead weight concept that we did in the last film and find out, you know, if you've got a flea market special or something like that that you picked up.
Okay, hey, I'm back and we're going to talk now about some suggestions for finding gold for new prospectors. Basically people who are interested in the Gold Monster 1000 and want to get out there and be successful in finding gold. And this is, it's directed at new guys, but this is good review for a lot of prospectors too. So even if you're experienced. So let me give you 7 suggestions that I have to help you be more successful at actually finding gold with the Gold Monster 1000. The first is to listen to small targets. You know, a lot of guys who have experience hunting for coins or relics or that kind of stuff are used to listening to loud targets that make lots of noise when you go over them. The trick is that, yes, there are some really big gold nuggets out there that are close to the surface, but the vast majority are smallish and they may be a little bit deeper. And so you got to listen to that small whisper of a target. if you're just listening for the loud screamers and you're ignoring the small sounds from the small target sounds from the gold monster, you're going to be walking over gold and missing it, and you don't want to do that. So that's my first thing. Listen to small targets. The second is slow down. A lot of guys get the idea, well, the more ground I cover, the more chances I have to find gold. And actually, that's not 100% true either, in the sense that if you're swinging fast and going fast, you're going to miss those faint targets I talked about, the weak targets that you need to listen to. And if you don't slow down, you're not going to hear those. So you need to slow down and take your time. Go slowly and listen carefully. One of the things that's really important to remember, prospecting is not a race. It's about finding gold. So that's item number 2. Number 3 is coil control. One of the things you want to be sure to do is you don't want your coil to swing in a shape like a U. Even a little bit of a U is not good. You want to keep it flat and parallel to the ground. And you keep the coil flat and parallel to the ground, then the gold monster is going to be able to do the best for you. You want to keep this coil to where it's right as close to the ground as you can. Don't have it way above the ground. I mean, if you're swinging this far above the ground, you're losing that much depth. You need to be close to the ground and swinging parallel to the ground. So coil control, that's another important thing. Number 4, overlap swings. A lot of guys get going fast and they take one swing this way, and then the next one they're out here, and the next one even farther, and there's a V-shaped space as they're stepping forward that they're not swinging over. Well, if you don't put this coil over the ground, that part of the ground, even if there's a gold nugget there, you're not going to hear it, because it doesn't hear the parts of the ground that it doesn't go over. So that's really important. Control your coil and overlap your swings. That's really important. So number 5, practice in the field. A lot of guys, like I say, want to listen to new targets or fake targets and things like that, and they're new to prospecting. Take little bits of lead and go out and practice. Get away from houses and current and electricity and stuff like that. Get out in the gold field and have a few little pieces of lead that you could practice listening to those faint targets. The types of lead I'm talking about, I'm not talking about some big fatty bullet, giant bullet thing. You don't want a screamer. What you want is some little tiny bird shot, little piece of lead like a 1/16 of an inch in diameter. Hit that a couple of times lightly with a hammer to flatten it out, and that's a perfect practice target. So be sure and get out there and practice so that you know the kind of faint targets, weak targets that you need to listen for. Another thing about targets is be careful not to track out targets. This detector, the Gold Monster 1000, has an automatic tracking system. And if you get a target and you go over it and just tightly, stay right over the target trying to listen to it, the detector has automatic ground balance, and it will track out that target and eliminate it. And suddenly, your target's disappeared. That's not good. So when you find a target, don't just hover over it. Swing out a little bit, get away from it so the detector can see some other ground. And then also, if you do lose a target, you go over it like this and suddenly it's gone. Go over here, pump the coil a few times, swing over away from the target, and then go back to it. You'll find that it's showed back up again because the detector has re-ground balance to off the target, and so it'll see it again. And then finally, I want to say, a lot of guys, tell me, oh, I've been detecting for a long time and I haven't found any gold. What am I doing wrong? Well, one of the things that I want to say, and it's important, is that gold is so expensive because it's so rare. It's not something that, where there's just, I'm here in an old placer area. It's not something where there's just nuggets strewn everywhere. The old timers didn't leave nuggets everywhere. They took them with them. Gold is rare, and it's hard to find. And you can find it. Believe me, you can be successful. A lot of guys are, and a lot of guys have been, and there's no reason why you can't also be successful in finding gold. But if you're getting your detector over little bits of lead. If you're detecting those little bird shots like I told you to practice with, if you're out in the placer area and you're getting little tiny lead fragments and bird shot and that sort of thing, well, you're running the detector right. You just need to get the coil over a nugget. Sometimes that's hard to do. It takes a little bit of experience and learning about prospecting for gold and how to find gold. And but be patient, you know, be persistent. Being persistent is one of the keys to being successful in prospecting. You know, a friend of mine says a metal detector stored in a closet gathers only dust. And he's got a lot of truth in that. So be persistent, get out there, swing your coil, enjoy your time, get used to this really excellent new detector, the Gold Monster, and I think you're going to find that you're very successful. Good.
If you come up the Adirondacks Mountains from September to the end of the year, you have to put something, red thing, cloth, and sew it to this so someone won't get too excited and shoot at you. And another thing, when you're up here in the Adirondacks Mountains, I would suggest bringing 2 bear sprays. Keep one in the bucket, hang one up in the trees where you can get to them easy. I have to put in an advertisement now for the Adirondacks Mountains. My name is Gareth Tooley. I'm the CEO of 22nd Century New Technologies Company, Incorporated. I got this name a long time ago because I looked at small, very small stocks. One of these stocks made scrubbers for CO2 scrubbers for electric coal burning smokestacks. These scrubbers took out CO2. This is what Biden is worried about. Everybody knows that they made fire extinguishers from CO2 because the CO2 would go down to the ground and stay there and smother the fires. And a long time ago, there was a guy that had tuberculosis. He went up to the Adirondacks Mountains. In 3 weeks, he was cured. In that 3 weeks, when he went there, he thought he was going to die. So he made a tuberculosis hospital where they fixed tuberculosis. That's how clean the air is up in the Adirondacks Mountains. And when it gets 20 to 30 degrees outside, the cold weather takes all this CO2 right down to the ground. Captain Joe says, when you look up the air and see the jets going by, and you see fumes behind it, that's just like your breath when you're outside cleaning your windshield wipers. So you can think of Al Gore when he's flying around in his jet. He's helping the planet because all that jet fumes, CO2, was going down to the ground and into the ocean. And he's saving the seaweeds to be grown. So he's saving the planet.
Take your best, Mr. Chairman. Panelists, let me just go right down the line real fast. What % of our atmosphere is CO2? Take your best guess. You don't have to be accurate. All down the line.
Repeat that question.
What % of our atmosphere is CO2, carbon dioxide? Wild guess, it's okay.
About 5%.
5?
I'll just follow you then.
We'll go 7.
I'll see their 5 and suggest that we know that transportation causes 49% of CO2, so that's why we're all working on energy transition.
All right. So what number do you think it is?
5.
5? How about you? I didn't hear you, Mr. Dreyer.
7.
7. Do you have one, Mr. Boyd?
So we got a 5, 7,
Price is right.
8. I'm gonna
Okay.
take the high end.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, and I don't mean to put you on ice. I ask a lot of people that because all we hear is climate change, CO2, CO2. I heard a couple of you on the panel saying you're looking to change your vehicles to electric, even though we don't have the electric grid. And me as a farmer, I wouldn't be real happy about running out and replacing $300,000, $500,000, $1 million pieces of equipment because someone wants it to be electric. The answer is 0.04%. Not 1%, not a half of a percent. It's 0.04%. It's gone up from 0.03 over the last couple decades. This is what we're being all contorted into doing, is this tiny change in CO2. If we get below 0.02, plant life starts dying off. So let me ask Mr. Boyd, what are a lot of your vehicles Tier 4 already, or the vehicles that you know about in the industry?
Yes.
All right, so that's the cleanest burning diesel equipment you can get, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. How about Mr. Dreyer? What do you think?
Yes.
Okay. So why would anybody be anxious to go out and change out all those vehicles that you've been upgrading? In my home state of California, CARB has eliminated lots of equipment. Trucks, we're down at least 70,000 truckers, and all because they don't make a mandate for a 2011 and newer vehicle. And so it's going to be harder to get things from the ports, all this, all that. So,
Well, that's the end of our Part 3 movie. This message is for you if you are a United States citizen. Underneath Public Land Law 82, it states, if you find any gold or any other mineral upon New York State land, it's yours. So you want to check out our Rhyolite volcano movies, you will see if it was out west, they would have gold all around them. And there's no mountains in Canada and the Canadian Shield that would have glaciers strong enough to take a 32-ton boulder that stands 11 foot high to South Colton, New York. This rock is called Sunday Rock. So someday you might want to think about taking your vacation here. That is if you are a United States citizen. And the gold is right now over 1,900 a troy ounce.